Morning, this is my three thought video for today. It's February 21st. I'm in Leviticus chapter 11. I am the Lord who brought you up out of Egypt to be your God. Therefore be holy because I am holy. And this verse is so rich. I was talking to someone the other day about how a lot of times in a verse, there's just so much packed into it. You don't even really need other verses. You can just dive into this one verse because it's just so much. I am the Lord, right? God is declaring himself to be God. I am. I mean, that is just powerful. And this verse, in the context of where it is in Leviticus, comes in after he starts telling them the animals that they're allowed to eat, and the animals specifically that they're not allowed to eat: owls and rabbits and geckos and lizards and all different types of animals, snakes and four-footed creatures and whatnot. But then he goes on to say, I am the Lord who brought you out of Egypt. Talks about his deliverance, right? He delivered them from bondage. He set them free from that state. And I like this up and out, right? He brought them up out of it, out of the pit of despair, out of bondage and sin, out of death and dying, up and out of Israel or Egypt, out of Egypt, to be your God. God has created us to be his people, right? God has made us for himself. He's made us for delighting in God. It's just a beautiful verse. Therefore, be holy because I am holy. This is two-part for me, right? The union that we have with God is based on our desire to be connected to him and agree with him and be holy. And then other part is vocation, right? The nations of the world would look to Israel as that conduit, right? The place where they could see God, because they could see a people of God who identifies with and to God because of their holiness. It's just I think a beautiful, powerful verse. And then in Psalms, I was reading in Psalms chapter 104. It's just a beautiful verse. He's talking about he makes the grass grow for the cattle and plants for man to cultivate, bringing forth food from the earth, wine that gladdens the heart of man, oil to make his face shine, and bread that sustains his heart. I just think this is such a beautiful verse, because God is doing something cool. He's doing something cool out of the ground, right out of the dirt. Out of the dirt comes everything we need and want, everything that we desire, everything that is necessary and even beyond necessity, right? To point of gladness and even vanity, if you could say, shiny faces and gladdened hearts. And it all comes from God out of the dirt. I just think that's really cool and delightful, and I just like it. So this last verse in Mark is a little more somber. Jesus is teaching in the temple courts, and watch out for the teachers of the law. And then he says this: they devour widows' houses, and for a show they make lengthy prayers. Such men will be punished most severely. First of all, I want to talk about the greed and the likelihood that those of us in power, or those who are in power, devour those that are vulnerable and take advantage of the weak. It's just a horrendous thing when powerful people take advantage of the weak. And we're all kind of guilty. I think that we should recognize that there's that piece that's active in the world. The other thing that I think that is so interesting and just always catches my eye in Scripture, it's the virtue signal, right? It's the signaling of virtue. They're making rounds in the marketplace, and flowing gowns and loud, long prayers about how God is this. It's just this grand opera, right? That the righteous teachers of the law are doing. And it's all about signaling virtue, because deep down their hearts are hollowed out bones and terrible. And I just think that we ought to pay attention, right, to and you know, I'm guilty here. I'm doing my Bible study on Facebook for all to see, but I do want to be aware of how signaling virtue, something that God condemns, Jesus says outright, lengthy prayers so that people will notice them. Such men will be punished most severely. There's a severe punishment for those who, you know, signal virtue instead of actually be virtuous. That's all for today. We'll see you next time.